All right. Good morning, everybody. It's October 21st, 2022. We're very glad you're with us this morning. Our agenda this morning, we'll start out with success stories. I've just heard about one landing. Hopefully we'll hear all about it in just a second. And I've heard a couple more about them on email. We'll have everybody then put their 30-second introductions into the chat window. For those here in person, we'll let them do their 30-second introduction via the microphone. For those, then we'll hear our committee reports. We'll hear about workshop, job fairs, the practice interview team, the interview success workshop, the career tip of the week, and then our main event coming up around about 9:55, 10 o'clock this morning. All right, let's see here. If you have any questions throughout the presentation today, you're welcome to just open up the Zoom chat window, put your comments there. For those watching on Facebook, you're welcome to enter your questions into the comment field. We'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the prior leader said, he had landed and said, who wanted to take over? I think I scratched my face. He said, okay, Jeff, you're it. So I've been doing that ever since. In 2008, I saw there was a need in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I created a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those who are unemployed by putting everything somebody needed to know about their job search in one area. 10 years ago, almost to this week, I launched a second website, careerusa.org, to help those outside the DFW area. Thanks to everybody who doesn't live in DFW, who's joining us this morning. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search that you may not know. It is available on Amazon. If you see me in person, I usually have copies with me. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, and you'll hear more about that in just a moment. Well, we like to start the meeting off with good news, and we have a landing who just popped up on our chat window. So, Geneva, do you want to tell us your good news?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Yes, I wanted to share with the group that I actually just made it official. I accepted a position with RTI/CMA. It's Community Management Associates. It's an it's an HOA. It's for a manager role. And I'm very excited. I've been looking since the first week of August. So it came just in time, I'll say that. And I will say also that the morning of the final interview, I actually did the interview practice workshop with Walt Glass. We did that workshop from 8:30 to 10 o'clock. And my in-person interview was actually at 11 o'clock. So everything was literally fresh on my mind. All of the recommendations that Walt gave me, I was able to put into play immediately. And I did want to add that the position that I went to interview for, obviously it was a multi-step interview process. And I was interviewing for a position that paid significantly less, but it's what was available. And I just thought, I'm going to go through the process. I need the practice and I need the work. And when I got into the final interview in person, that's when they told me they were considering me for the management role, which was in my salary range. So, of course, I accepted, and I'm very grateful, and I'm very fortunate for everything you do, Jeff, and Career DFW, and everybody that I've met along the way. I mean, I've been laid off twice in less than 12 months, and both times I have gone this route with the networking groups, Career DFW. I did the pit crew interviews the last time. I did Walt's interview success workshop. And it's just helped me out tremendously. So just wanted to thank everybody.
Great. So, I think it just goes to prove that even though you go for every interview you can, because you never know that they may put you in a role that is a higher role once you show them what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very grateful. Yes. It all worked out. So
That's great. So what would be the number one tip you'd want to share with job seekers out there right now?
oh boy. Well, I'll say it's a tough road. I mean, I'll say that. I've been through it twice in the last year. I would just say just to keep persevering. I also attend the Reach Up, Reach Out group every Friday morning that you have posted on your website, Career DFW website. And that's kind of the support group portion for people that are job seeking and going through this transition because of, all of the emotions and everything involved in the process. It's really hard. And so this group has helped me tremendously as far as just to keep going and to keep me encouraged. So I would recommend that. And then I would recommend to keep going through the process of jobs that even seem like they're not, what you're really looking for, or the salary isn't what you're looking for, because I've applied for a lot of those because I couldn't find anything in my salary range. I'm having to do a career pivot from mortgage and real estate. And that industry right now is really starting to hurt. So, so with that pivot in mind, I had already accepted the fact I was probably going to have to take a huge pay cut and just figure out what I was going to do along the way. And so, again, admittedly, I wanted to throw in the towel many times on this interview process with this company because it was very long. I actually started applying in August. So it's been very lengthy. There's been some bumps along the way. Again, when I started interviewing via Zoom, it was for a position that paid about $24,000 less than what my salary range was. But I thought it's good practice and you never know. And once they have my information, then they have it. So it paid off. I mean, it paid off. So
perseverance, I guess, is what you're saying. Just keep going for it. Don't stop. Take every interview you can get. Yeah,
that would be my recommendation. And Reach Up, Reach Out on Friday mornings via Zoom at 7:00.
Yeah, but I think that's through what, Frisco
Connect is the networking part of it, and then Reach Up, Reach Out is kind of the support group of it, and it's through Stonebriar.
Right, through Stonebriar Church, right up in Frisco.
Yes.
All right, well, congratulations. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Do we have anybody else? Any other landings? Anybody else wants to announce? All right. I guess not. All right, we'll move on here. Congratulations. It's great to have a landing. I don't have the correct number. I'll put in the email that I put out this afternoon how many landings that's been so far for the year. All right, what we'd like everybody to do now is in the chat window, please put in your 30-second introductions. We'd like to know, put in your name, comma, phone number, comma, email address, comma, position you're looking for, comma, 2 or 3 target companies. Very important you tell us the target companies, because that way we can look over our list and see if we know somebody we can maybe help you out there. So if you will, everybody put your information in the Zoom chat window. For those watching on Facebook, if you want to put your information in the comment field, I will delete that information immediately after the meeting, so it won't be hanging out there forever and ever. So we'll put 30 seconds on the clock. And by also putting your information in the chat window, that will allow me to update the roster. I'll get your name on a roster. I also will make sure that everybody who does that, you'll find out this afternoon. I'll put an email out this afternoon with everybody's contact information, with all your personal information that you've given us. So please, please, please put your contact information into the chat window so we know that you are with us today. We do have one person who's here live, so let me hand the mic to him and I will allow you to, let's see here, let me spotlight and let him give you his 30-second introduction.
Jeff, I'm doing mine a little bit different. Good morning, fellow networkers. My name is Anthony Archery. 2 weeks ago, Friday, I had the opportunity to have a lunch with Walt Glass after the morning session. It was the most enlightened lunch period I had in a long, long time. I really appreciate Walt's work and his help, his support, and his outstanding servant leadership. And I'm very thankful for him for that opportunity we spent together. And I will tell you, if you miss out on coming Fridays, you're missing a treat to enlighten your career path.
Tell us who you are.
I did. And again, Anthony Archery.
All right. Thank you very much. As you know, we are meeting back in person now. We'll be here every Friday from now on. I know I wasn't here last Friday. I was out of town, but we will be here every Friday from now on. Okay, let's see here. If you know somebody who's unemployed, somebody who's newly unemployed, somebody who just maybe got laid off after all the years, we know there'll be it looks like there's going to be a number of layoffs coming in the next several months. Please let them know about Career DFW and careerusa.org, two totally free websites that are here just to help you with your job search. They're totally free. We don't collect any personal information. And if you know somebody who just got laid off and they're really not sure what to do, right there on the front page, you see that blue arrow. I just lost my job. What do I do now? There's a great one-page article that has several different handouts that somebody can use, a little checklist and what they need to do first, second, third, fourth. So please check that out. On the Career DFW calendar, for those in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we have several calendars all about career fairs, training, and workshops that are happening. I know coming up the second week in November, there are a lot of workforce offices, at least in the state of Texas, that will be putting on job fairs, red, white, and blue. I think they're calling red, white, and U job fairs the week of Veterans Day, that week of November 10th or whatever around that area. There's at least 3 of them in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. One at Gilley's for the Dallas County Workforce Commission, one in Tarrant County, I forget where that one's at, and the third one in North Texas will be up in Plano. So there'll be some big giant job fairs that I know they're coming up. Be sure to check those out. All those are listed on the Career DFW calendar. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the practice interview team. The practice interview team is here to help you with your job search. First off, it's totally free. All of our services are totally free. We're just trying to help you get your next great opportunity. What you need to do is you need to find a resume and, you have your resume, find a job description, send a job description and your resume into dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. And what you'll get is a real practice interview. It'll be a panel of 2 or 3 hiring managers who've been hiring in the past and who are willing to help you with your interview. It'll be about a 45-minute interview, about 15 to 20 minutes of discussion afterwards, talking about how you did, evaluating what you did, the good, the bad, the ugly. It is recorded. They're on Zoom, so we can do it really any day of the week. So just send in your schedule 2 to 3, maybe 4 days out. Give us a couple days to try to schedule somebody or schedule your appointment. Their motto is practice early, practice often. You can practice as early as you want. Just find a job description that here's a job, it's in a different city, but I'd like to try to do it anyway. Or you could be the second or third round in on an interview. Just let them know where you are in the interview process and they'll be sure to customize that resume just for you. So just send in your resume and a job description to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. If you want more information, you can go to dallaspitcrew.com and find out more information there. If you'd like to schedule a one-way interview, you can send your request to Walt Glass or myself. A one-way interview, very odd, very strange. It's you and your computer. You sit there and you talk to the little green light on your laptop or whatever you have that says where you're supposed to be looking at. And the computer asks you a question and you need to answer it. Walt's is set up different than mine. Everybody, we've all set up our questions a little bit differently. They get the question, you have a couple minutes to answer it. Sometimes you can redo it, sometimes you can't redo it. It just depends on how each one's set up. So be sure to read the instructions. When you're done, we will send you a link and you can go back and watch it. I don't watch them. Walt doesn't watch them. We just send you the link back so you can watch it, so you can evaluate yourself. So if you'd like to schedule a one-way interview, totally free, once again, just send your request to Walt Glass or myself. Let's see here. Walt is not with us today, but I think I've got I got a recording here. What did I do with it? Give me just 1 second here.
Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Well, let me tell you, I've got a special deal going for the Interview Success Workshop. It's buy one, get one free. You buy an Interview Success Workshop at $0 and you can get a free pit crew interview. Now, I haven't worked this out yet with Mark, but I can assure that he will agree to that. So it's a special deal. I'm going to put up a website. I haven't done it yet, myinterview.com, promo code enthusiasm, and you can get this special deal. So today, what is the Interview Success Workshop? It is a very informal practice to learn how to sell who we are, what we do, and how we help, and to differentiate ourselves from other candidates. Companies are buying our personality, our characteristics, our soft skills, our experience, our education, certifications, those, and most of all, they're really buying how we can help them. And we need to show how we can help people in an interview. Many interviews do not include that at all. We've got to pass the likability test, the personality. You got to make sure that that fits, but we also got to sell all three. So this is what I do. It's very informal. You have to register to participate. Look me up on LinkedIn. That QR code that you see up there will start a email to say I'd like to register. You got to edit it a little bit and just send it to me, and I'll send you some dates of availability. We can get you started. We do it over Zoom. You'll get a video of your interview. You'll get a handout and a video of a handout that covers a lot of things that we talk about during the interview process itself. So we deal with the basic 12 questions and 12 categories. You'll get a sample of each. We get to look at strategies, options, structures, ways we might be able to answer that depending on the question, who's asking, and where you are in the process. So we'd love to have you participate. Just send me that email. No need to have to sit in a hot seat. There's no need to have anxiety and stress while we're practicing and learning about an interview. So I call it learning without squirming.
All right, we don't have a poem today, so I hope everybody can do without a poem from Walt today. All right, it's time to hear about the career tip of the week. There's a new career tip of the week on the Career USA and Career DFW websites. Every Saturday afternoon, a new one pops up, and Rosanna's going to tell us what this past week's one was. So good morning, Rosanna.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. All right, well, this week's tip of the week is 7 reasons why you're not getting to the next interview stage and how to fix it. So interviews for senior level executives roles, they differ from entry-level jobs in many ways. And so while being on time, having a strong handshake, and researching the company is enough to impress the recruiter when applying for junior roles, the senior executives, that bar is set higher. So interviews for senior roles consist of multiple rounds, and getting to the next one is often just a matter of tiny details. So to increase your chances of being invited to the next interview stage, make sure you avoid the 7 following mistakes. First, mistake number 1, you're stating only general facts. You might think dropping names of the functions you previously held sounds admirable, but the truth is titles don't matter much. Mentioning them is a great way to exhibit your career highlights, but they shouldn't be the main focus of your interview. So how to fix it? Focus on specific accomplishments. Instead of telling who you are, focus on saying what you can do. Your achievements in the previous positions are more important than the functions themselves. The best way to describe your accomplishments is by storytelling. While people often forget plain facts and terms, good stories stick with them for good. Before the interview, prepare narratives describing the problems you faced in the past and how you approach them. And the conclusion should portray your ability to fix issues using your skills and talents. Second mistake, you're talking too much about what you know. Displaying your skills and knowledge seems like a smart idea to make people appreciate your intellect, certificates, and education. However, this behavior gives a subtle sign that you're self-centered or a self-centered person, forgetting about the bigger picture. How to fix it? Focus on what you can bring to the company. You're not getting hired only because of what you know. You're getting hired because the company can benefit from your talent in the first place. So quit talking about yourself and start concentrating on how you can improve the company. Don't be shy to mention your business administration degree, but don't stop there. If you manage to find some problems that the company has currently facing, propose potential solutions or improvements. Talking about these points will make you look like you're ready or already part of the team. Mistake number 3, you're being too formal without any authenticity. Another common problem during the interviews is the need to look strictly professional. How to fix it? Introduce your genuine self. While bringing personal issues into the profession isn't advised, revealing a little bit more about yourself makes the interviewer's job a little easier. As the overall relationships at the workplace greatly impact the employee's performance, understanding who you are helps the company evaluate your personality and emotional intelligence. Fourth mistake, you're focusing exclusively on your past. There's nothing wrong with with dedicating most of the conversation to your accomplishments and skills. Everyone wants to reveal their strengths and experiences, so talking about your achieved goals makes sense. However, too much focus on what you've done comes with an unexpected downfall. How to fix it? Mention how you want to grow in the future. Mentioning your achievements helps interviewers evaluate your skills, but focusing only on your past may imply that you've reached the end of your professional journey. Companies need people with growth mindset, which means constant improvement and learning have to be a natural part of your professional goals. Mistake number 5, you're concentrating only on answers. For interviewees, it's typical to put too much attention on the answers as they depict their suitability for the job. Yet concentrating on your resume and the right answers robs you of the chance to demonstrate your interest in the company. How to fix it? Ask questions to show off your curiosity. The interviewer doesn't have to be the only person asking questions. If you start asking more, you'll encourage a discussion and convey your appeal in the role. You can use questions like, why is this position open? What do the first weeks look like in this new position? Shall I gain any specific skills to perform at this job as well? And then the interviewee will appreciate your effort, and you'll also receive practical answers. So whenever possible, avoid asking questions that have yes or no answers because they don't typically help the conversation. Mistake number 6, you ignore the end of the interview. Another overlooked mistake is taking off immediately after the interview part is over. You might think your job is done here, but neglecting the end of the interview can actually cost you the invitation to the second round. How to fix it? Always close the interview well. Due to the psychological phenomenon called the peak end rule, people judge their experiences based on how they feel at the end of them. Therefore, you should strive to finish the interview as best possible in the best possible way. Once the official talk is complete, don't run away and engage in personal conversation or ask additional questions. It offers you a great opportunity to leave a good impression that can later impact the interviewer's decision. And then seventh mistake, you're focusing only on the interviewer. On your big day, you walk into the building rehearsing the stories that you're about to share with a recruiter. But somehow you forget to say hello to the lady at the reception, smile at your future team members, or greet the cleaning guy in the hallway. A tiny mistake that comes with significant consequences. How to fix it? Be nice to everyone around. While people other than the interviewer might seem unimportant to your success, don't neglect the fact the interviewer might be later discussing your performance with others. Regardless of their positions, make sure you are kind to everyone so employees can think of you as a nice person they'll be happy to welcome on board. Get invited to the next interview. Even though executive roles come with great professionalism and maturity, you shouldn't forget that your interviewer is a human being just like you. Being cold, sharing only career-related stuff, or not engaging in the conversation are tiny details that might not seem relevant to the role that you're applying for, but they make a tremendous difference once the final decision has to be made. So remember these 7 reasons why you're not getting to the next interview and how to fix it. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you very, very much. And I'll tell you a quickie story. When job I had once at a company, the owner of the company kept letting our financial person go. So I was constantly trying to find financial people. So I'd bring them into the office and they walk them around, introduce them to everybody. Then I'd take them off, drop them off at the owner's desk, the owner's office. When the owner was done, she'd call me. I'd come back and get the candidate, walk them out the door. And as soon as I would turn around after walking around the door, the receptionist would give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So you just never know who that person is, who's going to make that comment about, yeah, I like that person, or no, that person had a scowl on their face or whatever. So be nice to everybody you meet. It always works out. So these are some great tips to use. Thank you very much for reading that. All right, today for lunch, hopefully some of you will come join us at 11:45. We're going to go to Country Burger. It's on the northwest corner of Parker and Independence. Burgers, salad. They have chicken. They've got some other things. So please join us. Northwest corner of Parker and Independence, Country Burger at 11:45. All right, coming up in just a couple of minutes, Locke Alderson will be with us to talk about resume secrets, including how to dissect the job posting. I want to talk about our upcoming sessions we have coming up next week. I know we've talked about this in the last few weeks about accountability groups. Clayton Stockdale, who's with the Fort Worth Career Search Network, will be presenting all about accountability groups. This is really, really important. If you don't have an accountability group, this may be something you want to start. Clayton's going to talk about how to start it, how to do it, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, things to avoid. So who should be on your team? So it's a really good presentation. So please join us again next Friday morning. On the 4th, November 4th, being the first Friday of the month, we'll do open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you would like to talk about. And then on the 11th, November 11th, how to win over the holidays, mastering your mindset for success with Dr. Susan Carson. She was originally supposed to be with us today, but something came up and she couldn't be with us today. So that's why I know we've talked about it in the past about, she would be presenting today, but she'll be with us in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, in fact. So today, filling in last minute after finding out on Tuesday that Dr. Carson couldn't be with us, and Locke did his presentation on LinkedIn. He happened to mention about, I'm doing a presentation on dissecting the job posting. And I went, oh, Locke, could you do that for us this Friday? So Locke is a recruiting consultant, executive recruiter. He's been in the business for a long, long time. I'll let him tell you how long if he wants to admit for more than, 10 or 12 years. And, he's been he presents on LinkedIn Tuesdays once a month. So Locke, thank you for being with us. And I will turn it over to you. And thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me. It's been a good opportunity to get back in and sharpen my skills even though I'm semi-retired. I've mentioned that to somebody this week, and she said, you're busier now than a lot of people are when they're working. But that's kind of my background. Jeff, are you going to share your screen for me? Here we are. Okay. We'll share. That's my background up there for any of you that are interested. Again, I have to watch it. My touch screen is very sensitive, so I'll go back. Okay. I have 42 years in recruiting and HR with a number of companies in California and here in Texas, including companies like E-Systems, which merged into Raytheon Systems. When that happened, I joined a startup. It was actually a spin out from Raytheon, from Oracle, called Siebel Systems. Siebel, I was with them off and on from 98 until 2006. Got laid off a couple of times. We had contract assignments that ended. And then Oracle purchased Siebel, and I joined Oracle and was with them for 4 years. So that's my background. I've been doing work with those in job and career transition since 2001. Started with an 8-week workshop at our church and did that for 15 sessions, and then continued working with networking groups and job search groups at other churches. And then in 2013, I joined Mullen International, an outplacement firm out of New York. They had just won the contract from JP Morgan Chase to place some 10,000 people in the mortgage banking industry. And so I was with them for about 4 years. That 90-day contract I had with them lasted for 4 years and 90 days. Mullen sold out when the contract with Chase was renegotiated, sold out to Lehigh Harrison. And a month later, I joined Lehigh Harrison for about 2 years. So that's kind of my background. In terms of resume secrets, there are a lot of those that we want to find out. When we talk about resumes, okay, if we lived in a perfect world, we wouldn't need a resume, but we don't, okay? We have this kind of background that we have to deal with, the frustration of finding a job. So that's kind of what we want to talk about, some of the resume secrets. One of the big ones we want to touch on, and I'll spend a little bit of time on that a little bit later, is how do you dissect the job posting? And one of the things that you want to do is to differentiate yourself from somebody else. And the way that you can do that is match up with what the job requirements are. That doesn't mean rewriting your resume for every job posting that you see, although there are some consultants who recommend that. I do recommend that you at least tailor it a little bit. It's kind of like buying a suit at a store for those of us men who still buy suits. They tailor, not too many men can buy a suit off the rack and have it fit. Some will have to have the waist let out and the pants taken up, the sleeves on the jacket taken up a little bit or let out a little bit. So that's kind of what we want to talk about. So resume secrets, when we talk about that, we have to have an effective resume. The objective of having an effective resume is basically to land a job, or maybe to get an interview. But there's only one perfect resume. I'll just tell you that starting out up front. It's the one that gets you the results that you want and that you like. So that's what we want to talk about. We're going to try and touch on today having an effective resume, tailoring your resume to the job posting. Again, we can do that by taking a look and dissecting the job posting, avoiding that resume black hole. And maybe you don't know what that is, but if you've ever sent a resume in and never heard anything, you've been, I won't say ghosted, which is the new term, but your resume has entered the black hole. And I want to look at why that happens, getting past the applicant tracking system. And then your resume, you want to get it into the hands of the recruiter. These are some steps that you can have to getting closer to that job interview and to that job itself. I want to talk about some assumptions by writers of resume. You as a writer of resume overestimate its power. Okay, that's one thing that writers of resumes do. They assume that the resumes actually get read. Actually, 75% of them probably go through an applicant tracking system, really don't get read by a human being. They underestimate the number of resumes received for a job posting. The first response to a job posting is typically about 90 seconds. And there can be as many as 200 to 300 in the first hour. I know a friend of mine, Gail Houston, posted a position. What have we done here, Jeff? Posted a position when she was with EDS for a project manager. She had 300 in the first hour and took the posting down. So it's possible that you've encountered a situation where you've seen a posting online and you go back to apply for it later. This posting or this position is no longer available. Okay. Overestimate the qualifications of the people reading the resume, actually reviewing the resume. When it gets into human eyes, it may be just a clerk in HR or staffing that reads the resume first. It may be the executive assistant to the president. I know a couple of companies that I've worked with when I had my own recruiting firm. The executive assistant to the president was the person that did all the resume screening, and she had a high school degree. Okay, so you never know about who's going to be reading your resume. So you want to make it the KISS principle, keep it short and simple wherever possible. Has the wrong content. Some of you don't consider what goes into your resume when you apply for a position. You apply simply because that's a good company and I know they have openings from people like me. Wrong assumption that you make. And again, assuming the reader will understand the content. The resume should be written so that it can be understood by a high school graduate. Again, for some people, for some positions like college professor, I'm working with an individual right now has a PhD in mathematics and he wants to get out of that field. He doesn't want to work in the field of mathematics at all anymore. But if he was to say that, some of the things that he's done wouldn't be understand. I know my wife, when my daughter was down at A&M, majoring in mathematics, she attended a class with her. She said she understood three things from that class. When the professor said, "Good morning, students, turn in your assignments." And at the end of the class, here's your homework assignment. That's all she understood because the world of mathematics is completely different. One size resume fits all. Used to be that you could go to Kinko's or FedEx office and make 50 copies of your resume and that would cover all the positions that are out there. That no longer applies in any way, shape, or form. And more is better. Again, too many resumes are too long. A few resumes are worse. They have too little information. The next thing I want to talk about, if you were to give your resume to 100 people or even 10 people, you're more than likely to get a few opinions. They're different opinions. Is there anything wrong with the opinions? No, they're based on what the person speaking's experience has been. So you might ask yourself the question, when somebody gives you advice, what's the basis for their comments? Are they a recruiter? Are they somebody who's been job hunting? Are they somebody who has been a career consultant advising people on how to find jobs? Again, some things that get your resume noted and makes a great resume. It's organized and easy to read. It can be reviewed or scanned in 6 to 10 seconds. And yes, I say 6 to 10 seconds because most resumes, first pass, if it's by a human being, 6 to 10 seconds. I used to get resume books when I lived in California from Boeing when they were laying people off in the 70s. They were probably 2 to 3 inches thick. My wife used to joke because I'd bring them home with me. We were watching television. If they got a commercial, they got more of a chance to be considered. So again, that's what it takes to get that done. Is it easily understood? I mentioned that earlier. Is it concise? Is it roughly 2 pages? Most resumes, 1, 2, maybe 3 pages are about the max that you want to go. Some professions like professors may have 5 or 6 pages of the publication somebody has. Or if you've had project management in IT, some people like to see all the projects somebody's worked on. I know when I was recruiting IT consultants, they typically would talk about all the projects they've done and everything that they've done on that project. And is it easy to contact you? Where's your contact information? If it's not there where they can find it, if it's not correct, they aren't going to be able to contact you. So don't put your contact information in a header or a footer that you've seen on things like your name and your page number. That's a header or footer. But that kind of information is not captured by the applicant tracking system. Okay. Does your resume speak to the requirements of the job? Some more insider secrets. Basically, what is a resume? Basically, a resume is simply a piece of paper with some information about you and about your work and job experience. So it is designed to get you the interview, to attract somebody's attention. There used to be in some of the magazines like Ladies Home Journal or Good Housekeeping, a scratch and sniff for a new lady's perfume. The objective was to get you to scratch and sniff the perfume and then buy that perfume at the department store or the drugstore if you liked it. Likewise, a resume is a script for you to be interviewed. Many of you have gone into face-to-face interviews, personal interviews, person to person. The hiring manager, the recruiter looked at your resume and says, let me take another look at your resume. And they use it and they ask questions based on the interview. There's another type of interviews called behavioral interviews, which kind of deviate from that a little bit, but they still ask questions based on your resume. It needs to have the contact information, as I mentioned. It has to be easy to read and understandable. It needs to be scannable. Basically, no templates, Text boxes are fancy fonts. The fonts that you can use that are most readily recognized by the applicant tracking software are those that are listed. And we'll show you what some of those look like. Needs a headline. What's the title of the job that you're applying for? Not the job that you necessarily want, but what's the job that's open in the company? Because that's the job that the applicant tracking system is going to search on. The database will search for that kind of a job in somebody's database. The summary needs to have a summary of your resume. It's basically an overview of your career, 4 to 6, maybe 8 lines of your duties and areas of expertise, what you've done and the results of performing them, followed by bulleted achievements or examples, accomplishments that tell how well you performed those duties. Needs to say who you work for and what they do. If the company's not too well known, it's good to put a one-line disclaimer of what they are. Okay, I worked for Mostec when I came to Dallas the first time. At the time, they were the world's leading producer of random access memories. Keywords from the job posting are critical as well, and needs to be proofread for spelling and grammar. Those are the things that you need to have. I want to talk next about the resume black hole. The internet made it possible for applicants to send in multiple copies of a resume in a single day, rather than having to address a cover letter and stick it in an envelope, address the envelope, put a stamp on it, take it to the mailbox. The internet allowed us to send multiple resumes in response to job postings, as many as 50 or 100 in a day. So what did companies do? They adopted software, applicant tracking software. It's a fancy name for a customized database, basically accepts your information, tears it apart, puts it in the format that the database wants, and puts it into a database which is searchable. But you may not have heard anything. Some resume statistics to take a look at. You have a good resume and it's not getting any response to the answer to the question one. Let's take a look at some basic statistics first. For each resume posting, 100 people or 200 people may say that's kind of interesting. 100 actually take the time to submit a resume. 75% of the resumes end up in the B pile or the reject pile because they've been screened out by an applicant tracking system. Yeah, it's that high. 3 out of 4 get screened out. So what you're trying to do is to get screened in. 25 of that 100 may get reviewed by an actual person, okay, a real set of eyes, if you will. And 5 to 10 may actually get a phone interview. Most interviews today start with a phone interview. And 3 to 5, when it used to be, they got a face-to-face interview. Now maybe it's an in-depth Skype interview that you have before you actually meet face-to-face. And some people get hired without ever having met the people that they're working with. Talked to a guy at a networking group yesterday. He has not met any of the people face-to-face that he's going to be working with. Okay, his group is a virtual group that's all over the country. So that's the kind of situation that you're also facing. That's the reason why it's important to go through things like the pit crew. I was on the pit crew staff for roughly a year and a half back in the 2012, 2013 timeframe. And it's invaluable to go through that process. And also Walt Glass's presentation where they actually record it can be very helpful for dealing with face-to-face or Skype type interviews. And one offer, and again, my percentage was usually about 85% of the people we made offers to accepted the offers. We'd screen the candidates pretty well up front to make sure that they were really interested in the job. Well, then what happens to your resume once you've submitted it? Odds are you'll never know what happened to it, okay? Too many people are unqualified. I know when I posted, was moved from Siebel over to Oracle Corporation, and we were looking for a Siebel consultant in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because Oracle still supported the Siebel software product. Again, I had 75 responses to the posting. 50 of them didn't even have the word Siebel in their resume. They were eliminated from consideration. The other 25, it was a question of how many times was Siebel in their resume. Once may be that they'd used Siebel as a product. 10 times might be somebody who's actually installed Siebel, which is what I was looking for. I was only looking for 1 or 2 people at the time. Resumes get fed into the applicant tracking system. Keywords in the posting. Again, when a search is conducted, if you've seen some of the posting or the presentation that is done on LinkedIn, some of the postings when somebody actually does a search, what do they search for? They search typically for the job title and the keywords and skills. Those are the things that they put in the search criteria. And if those aren't a match, you aren't going to get selected for that, for it to be that group to be talked to or looked at further. Credentials get you reviewed by a recruiter and scanned for contributions. And then the top matches are actually phone interviewed or met face-to-face. So what are the parts of a good resume? First, your headline. It's the job title that you're applying for. Okay, you don't want to use a generic title. Again, unless it's a situation where you're sending a resume in blind to a company executive, again, you want to have the title of the job that you're applying for. The summary, as I've mentioned, this is the implication of that, of the summary, is this is what I've done for my employers, and by implication, focusing on the future is, as we mentioned in the tips of the week, or what you can do for the current employer, the new employer. Skills and keywords, visually appealing, and results for performing your duties, and proofing your resume. Again, I can't emphasize those too much. So let's take a look at some more basics. The big deal about real estate, generally it's about 2 pages. More than that, and people aren't going to read it. Think about when you get your email in the morning, most of you take a look at 2 things. You look at the subject line, the sender line, and make a decision. You're going to either take a look at it, read it now or later, or you're going to send no, delete it, or skip over it. I know my wife, it frustrates me when I look at her emails, and she's got thousands of emails that she hasn't deleted. But I go ahead and delete the ones that I'm not interested in, like most people. Okay, here are the type formats. I mentioned some different ones to take a look at. Generally, you're going to use an 11-point or 12-point font. And this is the 2 that the 4 that I mentioned: Calibri, Arial, Tahoma, and Times Roman. Although people have said Times Roman is now showing how old you are, you notice the difference in size for the different headlines. Calibri, a 10-point is rather small to look at. And don't use a small type font like 8. I can always expand that image on my computer. But when I go to print it out, and yes, I'm an old dinosaur that likes to see the printed copy, the hard copy, it's awfully very small and hard to read. And big, too big on headline points. It used to be with some of the job boards, if you put in something where it's bigger than a 16-point font, it would cut it in half. So it was very interesting when the name was in a 24-point font to try and make out the name from the bottom half of the font. Okay. Limit your use of bold and italics. That can cause problems for computers, and underlines. Okay, don't use the text boxes, job boards, okay, and headlines. Some of those things can cause problems, so that the formatting that you have done that's so beautiful when you created the resume is going to look the same way when it enters into the applicant tracking system. One way to get around that is to use a PDF file. Again, that cast it in concrete. It's hard to change a PDF file like that, although there are some translators that can do that. Got one on my computer right now. Okay, the high fonts you got to be careful about. I know when I was with Oracle Corporation, this is a copy of a resume I actually get, that I actually received. I had Oracle, I think I had Word 7 or 8, and a new version of 10 had come out. Somebody had created it in 10. And this resume is what it actually looked like. So if you do that, want to go up, I can go to change that, go up to the fonts up at the top of the page on Word, and scroll down, do a Control-A, and translate it into Arial, and it'll translate. But again, this was the resume that I actually received, and I've saved it because actually the actual resume was 7 pages long in Wingding. Okay. Don't use the headers, text boxes, and templates. Again, they cause problems with the formatting. And when they parse the resume or tear it apart to put it into the database in that format, they're not going to necessarily look at the same way. The contact information. Also want to include your zip code, because searches for recruiters are typically based on distance. If you've been on the job board, you notice the default setting when you look for a job is usually 25 miles. The next one is down is 15 or 10, and can go up to 50. Again, if you live close, because a lot of people don't want to drive more than 10 miles to work, or 15 or 20 miles to work. So that's how zip code is used as a criteria for identifying the distance to and from a job. And so that's how people find you. Recruiters will go out for 25 miles from the location of the job, and the way that they do that is to identify your zip code. Again, a laser focus. If you've ever taken a piece of paper and a magnifying glass on a sunny day and taken it outside, you had to adjust that magnifying glass to the point where it caused a hot spot on the paper, it caused it to burst into flame. That's what you're trying to do with your headline, to match up. The summary Use concrete examples. If you have technical skills, particularly for people in technical fields like IT, you're going to may want to put the operating systems that you work with, the application software, the hardware that you work with, in a skills table up front. I know when I was looking for IT consultants, again, that was frequently very helpful to identify, are they a candidate or not? If they didn't have the experience, let's say Oracle Financials, and I was looking for Oracle Financials, move on to the next candidate. But it makes it easy for the reader to identify that you're a candidate for the job. Okay, good format for your experiences, the company name and location on the left, the dates on the right. If the company's not well known, put a tagline identifying what the company does or did. The job title, duties and responsibilities, 1 to 5 lines in that duties and responsibilities, and follow the recent experience with bulleted results. Again, it's your more recent experience. It's usually what the companies are interested in. When did you do that? What did you do and what did you accomplish with that? Keywords. If you use an acronym, I know FP&A is a word that recruiters use to find people with a background in financial planning and analysis. The first time you use an acronym like that, it's good to spell it out. A lot of resumes that I've looked at simply talk about when somebody got their degree, or maybe they didn't have the degree, but what have they done in education to keep up or have the experience in the field that I'm looking for? Certifications, awards, additional training that you've taken is always important. What have you done to keep up with your profession? Do omit references and pictures. References is needless real estate that you can use for something else. If I'm interested in somebody's references, I'm going to ask for it. So have a separate sheet with just your references. And pictures, I used to eliminate all resumes that had pictures, and some companies do that because they could be accused of discrimination. You didn't hire me because I was a woman. You didn't hire me because I was a man. Pictures are okay for 2 areas. That's for actors, that's both actors and actresses, and for models. Those are the only ones who ever do that. I know when I was recruiting flight attendants for Continental Airlines, frequently had glamour shots of nice looking individuals on that. Spell checking and grammar, numbers and dates. Honesty. You do want to be honest. There's too much information about you out on the internet that somebody can check. And yes, we do check those kind of things on the internet. Why do you have an effective resume? I mentioned the Siebel example. If you don't match about 75 to 85% of the requirements, don't apply. The likelihood is you're going to get rejected for that position. Have a readable resume, a scannable one. Some of these things I'm repeating a number of times because it is vitally important that you do that. In terms of results, okay, your results are really important to somebody. The accomplishments, the achievement, what was the situation, your star stories, if you will, situation, the action taken, and the results. You can start with an active verb, 1 to 2 lines to describing it. Where do you find those things? LinkedIn recommendations is a good place if you have any. In your last 6 months, what have you done that you're proud of? If you were to write a Reader's Digest article for the greatest accomplishment of my career, what would it be? Then we'll talk about some of the things that you've done, some of the accomplishments that you've had. Where possible, use dollars and cents, use percentages to convey the impact, and spell out the numbers. 1M is 1 million. We tend to know that, but 1 with the zeros after it has a bigger impact on my brain. If you don't have those kind of things, before and after comparisons, you know, how many people, when I was with E-Systems, my last year there, I hired 180 people. The year before, I'd hired something like 50 people. So that's a before and after comparison that you might have, or a result of you coming in that reduced turnover by 50%. Those are kinds of comparisons that you can have. Did you save money? Did you make work easier? Did you solve a problem? These are the kind of things that you want to have. And anybody that wants the presentation, you'll send me an email to lockealderson@gmail.com. I'll be happy to send it to you because I'm covering a lot of information. I mentioned being honest. No white lies, tall tales, exaggerations. You will get caught. I know when I was with E-Systems, frequently or occasionally had somebody who exaggerated their degree, and we do check the degrees. And if they didn't have it, we actually walked people to the door. This is a copy of my resume if you're going to take a quick look at it. You notice on this particular one, I've got my name, got the contact information with my zip code, I've got my email address, and I've got a phone number. You can omit the H or the cell now. You can just put a phone number there. I've got a headline there. This is the job that I was looking. That's a combination job. There's 4 lines description. Here's a couple of the accomplishments that I did in career consulting. Okay, as a speaker at the workshops and seminars over, and actually 19 years, 20 years now, I've spoken to probably over 20,000, before 20,000 people. Okay, and when I was with the Mullen International, I actually worked with about 445 people. 300 of those, almost 70%, landed jobs that I was able to verify, and then the duties that I had. So that's a good quick look at a resume. That's mine. The other thing that you can add to a resume up here at the top is to add your LinkedIn URL. By having it there and underlined like that, if somebody were to click on it, it automatically takes them to your LinkedIn profile. The next thing we want to talk about, and this is the thing that Jeff and I were talking about, how do you customize your resume? You don't have to rewrite your resume every time that you get a new job opening that you're interested in. You can tear apart the job posting. And what do I mean by that? We're going to take a look at the job requirements, identify what they are, and then prepare a table with the requirements, the jobs requirements in the left column, and how your experience matches up or aligns with those in the right column. It doesn't have to be a perfect match. And then customize your resume accordingly, matching the title of the job that you're applying for and 2 or 3 accomplishments. So let's take a look at one that I actually worked with a candidate when I went with Lee Heck Harrison. This was an actual job posting for a position at DXC at Richardson. Again, you notice the requirements are down here, the education and experience required. This is what we took. We took this information at the bottom and we put it in a table like this, the left column. We then filled in the right column over here with his experience and how it matched up. That gives you some other, those are star stories that you can, star statements that you can make stories out of, okay? And we're looking for an MBA, okay, that he had. So those are the kinds of things that he was looking for in that particular issue. We then took the information and plugged it into his resume, okay? Took the title of the job and put it right up here. We took 3 bulleted items from the posting, from the job requirements table, and put it into the bottom. That's the first thing that somebody's going to see, first 6 to 10 seconds. They can identify, these are the requirements for that particular position. So that makes it easy for somebody to identify with what you've done. We want to talk further about that kind of position. You can use that same job requirements table in a cover letter. Typically, cover letters have 3 sections. The first section is where you found the job. What did the job consist of? You know, that you found it on their website, on a career website, on a job board, or somebody said that you were looking for somebody. Middle section is usually a narrative describing how you match up the requirements. And then the third section is, let's get together and talk about the position. Okay. I recommend something like a table letter, which takes out that middle section, because I worked with one candidate. Her middle section of her cover letter was actually 5 paragraphs, and her field was marketing communications. It was too long. People just don't read it. But what that did would take the requirements table and actually put it into the letter. The requirements on the left and the qualifications on the right. Makes it easy to identify for that person that's reading that cover letter to identify. We're looking for A, B, and C. She's got A, B, and C. Another way that you can do it is simply to put the qualifications in the letter in the center. Makes it really easy to identify. Again, we don't spend a lot of time. We're very short attention spans. If you look at the evening news on any of the major channels, you know that in the first 5 minutes, they'll cover 4 or 5 stories very quickly. Again, that same job requirements table is very useful if you have a phone interview, because you can have your resume on the desk, and the job requirements, the job posting on the desk, and this job requirements table. It gives you the idea to talk about when they talk about, well, tell me a little bit about your industry experience. You can talk about the different industries that you've worked in, or your relationships. If your relationships was important in that company, building relationships with hiring managers, or sourcing candidates. This is practically for me, the job requirements that I had for one. Some more tips for effective resumes. Use the keywords. They're the number one. If they aren't there, that's the number one reason that applicant tracking systems reject a resume. Do include the results for performing your duties, the quantifiable results when possible. Numbers and percentages often add credibility to that. Okay. Focus on getting the resume into the hands of the recruiter and hiring manager. Using LinkedIn to firing the hiring manager. Don't just reply on the internet. You can also reply on LinkedIn and send a copy of your resume that way. You can send a FedEx envelope or UPS. You can send a certified or registered letter. Somebody has to sign for those. You can include it in a package or box so that somebody has to open it and find your resume there wrapped in tissue paper wrap. A little bit extreme, but again, it gets noticed, and that may be what you're looking to do to start. If you're relevant, likewise, if your relevant experience isn't easy to find or at a glance, it's probably going to mean that you're going to get rejected. Or if it's unclear what you're applying for, that's the reason that headline is so vitally important. And if it isn't customized, if it's too generic, cookie cutter type resume, again, it's not going to meet the requirements of the job. It doesn't show how you do it. Have someone pass along your resume. Again, networking is probably the number one way that you're going to find a job. 40 to 80% of the jobs that you're looking for are going to be filled by networking. So if you know somebody in that company, have them pass along your resume to the recruiter or to the hiring manager. Many companies have applicant referral bonuses, but if you get hired, they get a bonus within the first 90 days. Okay. I know when I joined Siebel Corporation, it was a relatively unknown company. We paid $2,500 for each Siebel consultant that was hired to the person who referred them if they'd been there after they'd stayed 90 days. Again, I had one employee that had 6 referrals in the 6 months we had the program. Another thing that you're trying to do, the different delivery channels I mentioned, is the purple squirrel. Again, this was a magazine for recruiters back in the 80s and early 90s, looking for the purple squirrel is the ideal candidate. That candidate who has all the experience that somebody's looking for, they have all the qualifications, and they'll work for peanuts. I haven't found too many of those. And so when a hiring manager asked me for that, I would often say, I've found a couple of people that come close. Why don't you take a look at those while I keep looking for that ideal candidate that you mentioned that you want? And frequently they'd interview and hire one of those candidates presented. Okay, let's take a look at some resumes now, just as a sample. Notice that this one has the individual's name and information at the top. He has an email address. Again, older email addresses like AOL can show that you've been around for a while. And some people say they discriminate because you're an older worker. Again, it lacks as LinkedIn URL he needs to have. It's something he should add to that. Again, his summary, 3 to 5 lines. I mentioned some areas of expertise, not a skills table, but in areas of expertise. His company, he has a 1-line disclaimer of who it is. This is the soft drink manufacturer, the bottler, not the manufacturer of the syrup. There are 2 different companies. And what his duties were. Here are a couple of bulleted examples of his experience to highlight that. This is another one. This is another type of resume format. Notice that it's all bullets over here. Nothing wrong with this type of resume, but the recruiter that I would ask is, okay, as a recruiter, I've got 6 to 10 seconds. Which of these bullets are important for me? I suggested that a candidate like this, maybe to break up his experience, to pull out his accomplishments. So here are his duties, and here are his accomplishments that he had. And again, his title. This one is of a teacher, okay? She was in teaching. I show this resume because she was looking to get out of teaching. Okay, she has her experience that's there, if you notice. So what I did and suggested with her, when we talked to a hybrid or functional type resume format, her areas of expertise and what did she accomplish in those areas. She was looking for something in customer relations, communications, or public relations. Again, this is not necessarily a resume that you'd respond to a posting. This means be somebody that you know, again, the networking kind of opportunity to get a resume into somebody's hand, to show your areas of expertise in communications, administration, and sales. Again, recruiters tend to not like hybrid resumes simply because they talk about where you've done something and what you accomplished, but not when you did it or how you did it or who you did it for. But she has her history down here at the bottom, okay, where she worked as a teacher. And again, this is condensed to get it on 1 page. one page, but you can see what it's all about in that regard. This is my functional resume that I had. And I did it because in this case, I was looking at, actually, I have 5 functional areas. Okay, but it only shows 2, but I can rotate these blocks around to accomplish how it matches the headline up here. Okay, so recruiting and management, you can notice recruiting and employment management. I've got other things like training and development, compensation and benefits, employee relations, the other things that I've done in the miscellaneous category, areas of expertise that I have in my background. So wrapping up, giving you some secrets about resumes. Again, if you don't match the requirements, don't apply. Many of the people that replied to that position for Siebel in Minneapolis, Minnesota, were applying because it was Oracle Corporation. They knew they had other jobs for people like them. They do, but a recruiter, if he doesn't fill his positions, going to be out there looking for a job himself. The scannable resumes, okay, typos, headlines, summary, dissecting the job postings, critically important. Easy way to do that. Once you've done a couple of the job requirements tables like that, you'll have some of those accomplishments that you have so that you can just plug them in. Doesn't take a lot more effort. The first time may take a few more minutes than you think necessary, but it does allow you to tailor your resume to meet what are the requirements of the job, some of the keywords that are there. Different delivery channels that I mentioned, whether it's employee referral or sending it through a FedEx envelope or going to the post office, sending it registered or certified mail. Keywords, the #1 reason. Some other do's and don'ts that we want to talk about. Use the keyword. Focus on the current position. What have you done for me lately is certainly true. That's what companies are really paying for. Is your experience current? Have you worked with the latest software? Okay, are you aware of the tax laws that are involved? The legislation in a particular field? Those others. Reverse chronological order, 95% of the resumes I've read in my career, they were the reverse chronological. So quantify your achievements. And what were the results of performing the duties? And do sweat the small stuff. Make sure that the phone numbers and the addresses are correct. Don't omit a summary. Don't assume anything about it. Don't assume who you're reading it to, unless you know personally the reader of your resume. Don't exaggerate your qualifications. Don't share too much information, and don't include references. Again, don't assume anything or exaggerate your qualifications. I know when I interviewed at Lee Heck Harrison, I interviewed for the job. Later they asked me to send in a resume so that they could turn it into HR for the paperwork necessary. So in that particular situation was purely a networking situation. That was known. If you want that list of the presentation, the slides, if you will, lockealderson@gmail.com. Jeff, back to you.
Locke, thank you very much. We do have
Questions?
one question. Scott asked a question, and this is about LinkedIn versus resumes, but I know you can address this situation. Can you answer a question about how do you list cities on a LinkedIn presentation? Scott, do you want to unmute your mic and give me a little bit more detail?
Yeah, it's not about how to list them. Something came up on another session I was on and it got me thinking. On somebody's profile, they had United States as their main listing of their city.
Yes.
And then there was talk that it should be an actual city, blah, blah, blah. Now, when you go into open for work and you can list up to 5 cities there.
Yes.
Does each one of those come into play when somebody's doing a job search?
No. Okay. Well, yeah, the answer is question yes and no. Okay. And what I was trying to do was to get to my screen so that I could.
Like what I mean is, let's say you list San Francisco on your main profile.
Right.
And then as the cities, you have New York as one of the 5 options. So if somebody's looking for a project manager within 50 miles of New York City, would they be included in the search?
Yeah, I can answer that question for you, Locke. Yes, I mean, when I've seen Kurt Vondermatter do the LinkedIn, when he shows the recruiting package that he's paying bukus of bucks for, yes, when he puts a city in, one of those, if one of the 5 cities match, you will pop up in his he will pop up in his findings. It'll just be a question of how much your keywords and everything else move you to the top of the list to be, whatever he sees. Yes, if you list one of those 5 cities, you would be able to be found through the
Now
recruiting.
that's in recruiters. Do you know, like any of us can go in and look for, let's say, a job, a position? Well, that would be positions, but if somebody's, if non-recruiter was looking under our basic search where we can pick different cities, do you know if that works?
Probably not, because those 5 cities are only listed into the employment part of the process, which is what recruiters would use. So if somebody is not doing, if somebody's not paying for it, and you have to remember that less than 50% of recruiters actually pay for the recruiting package, that it may not show up. So probably what I'd want to do is in the summary in your about section, list the 5 cities you're willing to work in. Because once again, that's another opportunity for a keyword match.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Let's see here. Terry said, can you please repeat Locke's email address? He just put it in the chat window. So if you'd like to do that. David says, will today's presentation be posted on the YouTube channel? Yes, it will. It will be, it'll be later this afternoon, probably 3-4 o'clock before it gets up there. Anybody else have any questions? You're welcome to unmute your mic. Locke is with us and we can get your questions answered for you. Questions?
Hey, Locke, this is David Webb. I'm calling you from Atlanta, Georgia. However,
I talked to an associate of yours yesterday, I think.
okay. Yeah, we probably all know each other here. Anyway, I'm getting ready to move in Q1 from Atlanta from one big peach city to a small peach, Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
I've already moved, so to speak, digitally, in that when you go on my LinkedIn profile, it shows that I'm Greenville, Spartanburg Metropolitan. Is that a wise move, considering that's where we want to move to? That's where my new job wants to be?
That's always good. They're going to ask, they may ask you the question sometimes that if they see on your profile, okay, that you're in Atlanta, okay,
Right.
or on your resume, if you have Atlanta on your resume,
Mhm.
and you need to somehow convey that you're open to relocation.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. On your profile, you can choose that, but under the open to work, one
Okay.
thing you can do that in your headline itself. You can open to relocations, because in your headline on LinkedIn, you've got 220 characters that you get to play with.
Perfect.
Open to relocation to South Carolina could
Okay,
be something that you want to put up there.
perfect. That's the answer I needed. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Locke while he's with us this morning? I think one of the things you need to remember about your resume is that, like Locke said, you ask 100 people, you're going to get 100 different responses. It has to be whatever works for you, whatever you feel comfortable with. Tell the truth, very important, and try different things. And I guess, your resume is like a fishing hook. It's the bait on the fishing hook. If you're not getting any phone calls, maybe you need to change something. Maybe you need to change some wording. Same with your LinkedIn profile. If you're not getting any phone calls, what is somebody else doing that maybe is getting phone calls? Look at other people's profiles and check that out. So it's the same thing with your resume. If you're sending resumes in and not getting that answer, not getting that phone call, what is it that you maybe need to change and just see? Because who knows, you change something and maybe you'll get something working out a little bit better.
Jeff, you brought up a good point. It's a crossover to the LinkedIn presentation that we do. If you search for a recruiter of Dallas, if you do that, there are about 40,000 people with recruiter in their profile. Pop open. If you're not showing up in the first 10 screens, that's 100 profiles. Then you want to take a look at what's in their profile. What are the words that they're using? That's in LinkedIn. Same principle. You can take a look at your resume and take those are those some of the things that you've done? Those are examples of people with your background when you do a search for yourself. So you can incorporate those same kind of things, not just in your profile, but in your resume as well. And the dissecting I mentioned, that's so vitally important because what it does, it allows you to tear it apart, make a real simple tailoring of your resume just to match the job title of the position you're applying for and examples of your experience that support the headline that are directly from the job posting. Those are examples. These are the things that you're looking for. Recruiters in most job postings, there's probably, if they have 15 or 20 items in the requirements or things and responsibilities, there's probably 2 or 3 that are knockout factors. Remember my Siebel example of Siebel in Minneapolis. Siebel was the knockout factor. They had to have that or they weren't a candidate. Okay. In Geneva's example about hers in property manager, homeowners association, if she didn't have that some way conveyed in her profile or her resume, she's probably not going to get considered for that position.
Any other questions from anybody before we move on? Going once, going twice.
I have one question about length.
Yeah, David.
I wrestle with, I have broad experience and it goes across a lot of areas and it's hard sometimes to figure out what to cut out. Like
Well, I'll use the example for
and something there.
I have the example that Jeff uses. He says, create a master resume with all of your experience and then cut it and tailor it down to that one. Another way to do somewhat the same thing is to have 2 different fields. I'm working with a gentleman in a local good center of the outreach from our church. He's got a PhD in mathematics, but he doesn't want to be in mathematics anymore. He wants to be a long distance truck driver. And you think that's kind of strange, but you dig into his background a little bit. And his dad, that was the background of his dad, and he loved going with his dad on trips. So that's the reason for his, and he was frustrated with mathematics, all the administration of teaching frustrated him, those kind of things. So
Well,
that's
David, I think David, I think the answer is yes, you get a master resume with everything you've ever done. But the important thing to remember is that when you fill out an application, you see a job description, you're trying to match that job description as concisely and exactly as you can, because what do you want? You want them to call you up. No resume, no LinkedIn profile is going to get you a job. It only gets you a phone call. As long as you list on your resume prior relevant experience and you list these other companies and maybe 1 or 2 bullet points of what you've done, that allows you to talk about what you've done at those other jobs. But you've got to focus in on whatever the job description is. My example I like to use all the time is, a new batch of graduates are going to be graduating here in December. And some of those people are going to get hired on. And they're going to be, become recruiters or be asked in a recruiting manner. They're going to be given this job description. They have no idea what it really means, but they just know that they need to find 10 people who meet these qualifications. So they're going to go through and this is what it says here. Let me see if I can find these exact words on somebody's resume and do that. That's why I think it's really, really important that once you get that phone call, you ask them, hey, thank you very much for calling. What was it about my resume that made you pick up the phone and call me? Because now you know what the important thing is to talk about.
another question like that too. After you've done your 30-second pitch, tell me about yourself. End that question with, I've told you a little bit about me. Tell me about the ideal candidate that you're looking for. They're going to talk about their hot buttons, their requirements that they have, the knockout factors that you got to have or not going to be a candidate. The other thing that Jeff alluded to by having the second resume, how do you know what things in your long master resume to include? Do that job requirements table. It tells you exactly what they're looking for. By asking that question and tell me about the ideal candidate, you're verifying, is that really what they're looking for if you get the phone interview? Because in some cases, what they post in the job posting, that ain't what they're looking for. Okay, my son interviewed for a job for a motion graphic designer with a firm in Austin, and he had all the background they were looking for. They got into the interview and they're also looking for somebody who was a social media guru. No, he knows what social media is, but he hadn't used it for advertising. How do you advertise and get people to respond to something like that? So use that job requirements table. Take advantage of that. That's why Jeff had me do this morning.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Any other questions? Well, Locke, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Let me just share a few things and we will get out of here. Next Friday, our speaker is going to be Clayton Stockdale. He's going to talk about accountability groups. This is really a great present, also another really good presentation, because if you're just sitting at home, number one, you should be sitting here in person with Anthony and myself, because we're going to go out to lunch. We're going to have a great time communicating and talking about stuff. But, you need to have a group of people who can help you with your job search. That does not include your significant other. That person is never included in this because you're already having to deal with that person on a day-to-day basis. But a group of people who are going to hold your feet to the fire and how to do that, who should be on your group. It's really, really a great presentation. So please be sure to come join us next week. If you've not put your 30-second introductions into the chat window, please do so. Put your name, phone number, email address, position you're looking for, a couple target companies. Let us know who you are so we can add you to the roster. I'll put out an email this afternoon after lunch with all those details of everybody's contact information. Please look over the list, see if you know somebody at one of these target companies and see who you can help this afternoon in their job search. Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. Please join us next Tuesday. Our presenter is Ruth Lipsky talking about LinkedIn, how to drive recruiters to your LinkedIn profile. So today, Locke talked about how to deal with resumes to your LinkedIn profile. Next week, Ruth's going to talk about how to get recruiters to make sure they're looking at your LinkedIn profile. Next Wednesday, we're going to talk about, for Interviewing Wednesday, how to discuss compensation and the circumstances around leaving previous positions. Those are two questions that come up in every interview, and you've got to be prepared for them. Don't try to come up with something on the fly. Have a set answer. And that's what they're going to talk about next week. And then next Thursday, it's the fourth Thursday of the month, so we'll be talking all about networking. Sonia Lowry, who was a vice president at Lee Heck Harrison for almost 20 years, we'll be talking about a secret weapon to simplify your networking efforts. She'll be with us live. So if you have any questions, you'll be able to ask her live when the presentation's over. So please come join us next Thursday at 1 o'clock. This session will be recorded, has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. On the Career USA YouTube channel, be sure to click on playlists because we've got over 400 videos currently up there. There's only 7 different playlists, so it'll help make things a little bit easier for you. And then down where you see that red arrow, click View Full Playlist. Up will come a list of all the different titles and topics that we've talked about. If you're looking at any of the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group titles, just remember to go in about 30 minutes to when the presentations actually start from those speakers. Hopefully you'll come join us today at 11:45 Country Burger, 3115 West Parker. It's at the northwest corner of Parker and Independence. Burgers, salad, chicken, more. Please just come join us just so we'll have something to talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about something good. If you want to come talk, I'll tell you all about my week in Washington, D.C. last week. I walked over 10 miles on the National Mall for about a 4-hour period, seeing all the national monuments that were there. So come join us today at 11:45 at Country Burger. So thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.